let's welcome a special guest to Fired Up with Blanca, Mr. Fred Schneiderman, an energy sector investor. Thank you for being with us, Fred. How are you?
Thank you, Blanca, and thank you to and hello to your audience as well. Good to see you today.
Thank you so much. Well, we're going to be learning from Fred a new area of knowledge, the laws of energy. And tell us a little bit about you, Fred. What do you do?
Well, I've had about 30 years of experience in producing oil and gas, living in Houston, in Texas for 18 years, and now I reside right outside New York City.
Amazing. And what is a typical day in the life of Fred Schneiderman like?
Typically, it's going through documentation and vetting different opportunities in the energy sector, whether that be oil and gas or renewables or other technologies that are coming down the pike more frequently in the last couple of years than previously.
For all of our listeners and viewers, what do we as people not commonly engaged in the practice of oil and gas need to know about energy?
Primarily that oil independence or energy independence per se for the United States is critical. It's an unbelievably important aspect for policy, for our standing in the world. We are no longer, because we are energy independent, reliant on foreign oil. In fact, we're a net exporter. So we don't have to compromise any policies overseas in oil-rich countries in order to obtain the energy necessary domestically for the use of the American citizens. I think that's very important. I think it's important that folks know that.
How do you assess the current level of independence today?
I think it allows whether you're Secretary of State and regardless of your position, whether independent, Republican, or Democrat, I think it allows dignitaries to go over in oil-producing countries and able to negotiate policies and have a relationship. And we just saw the Accords, the Abraham Accords signed last week. I think it bodes very well for a very harmonious relationship going forward. So I think it bodes very well.
In addition to independence, what is the second most important factor in the laws of energy?
Describe that a little bit better, if you would, if you can hone down on that.
Well, first you talked about independence, so we definitely want to make sure that we're independent and that we're also creating jobs in this country in the oil and gas. What are some other factors that are important to consider in the energy space?
Well, I think people need to recognize a couple different things in the energy space that they may not be aware. And really, over and above the energy independence, we have billions of dollars being spent by major oil and gas companies for clean fuel. We all want the cleanest fossil fuel with the cleanest energy possible for ourselves, for our children, future generations. And I think there's not an understanding or a full appreciation how much billions of dollars, in fact, the major oil and gas companies are putting into cleaner fossil fuels, renewable alternative energy, such that we have a cleaner environment for everybody. And I think the misnomer is that they'll produce at any cost, whether or not it's deemed to pollute the environment. I think that is highly overestimated.
And what can we do as a community to learn more about energy and why it's important to us?
Well, I think it's important when it comes on the news or any periodical or any opportunity you have to read online to really get at least a cursory understanding and just not be judgmental until you're a little bit more informed about what the major oil and companies are doing. And it's a lot more in concert with I think people understand or currently realize. And given my druthers, and I've had this conversation with folks, they're always surprised how much money that the major oil and gas companies are putting in towards the same goal that they have.
And what are the best resources to get educated about the oil and gas industry?
Well, of course, talking to the executives on a daily basis in the major oil companies are certainly helpful. But for everyday folks, there's oil and gas journals There are periodicals. Even if you go to renewables and the major companies, they put out press releases. So by virtue of Google or other social media outlets, there's plenty of opportunity to obtain a plethora of information.
And what is the number one benefit of following oil and gas and energy principles?
Really, so people can get more informed when they make a decision. We have a presidential election coming up. Climate change and clean fuel in the sector is very important to a lot of folks. We have one candidate that is steadfast in his position. The other candidate seems to be flip-flopping in his position with how he's going to proceed with the laws and regulations for drilling. I think anybody who wants to be that it's an important issue for, to be an informed voter is to be a great voter. And if it's a policy or it's something important to you, the more informed you can become, the better voter and the better vote you can cast. So I think in that respect, it's relevant to the time.
Well, that's great advice. And Fred Schneiderman, thank you for educating us today on the laws of energy. You can follow Fred Schneiderman on LinkedIn and learn more about his platform and his laws of energy. Thank you for being with us today, Fred.
Well, Blanca, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank your audience as well, and have a pleasant day. Thank you.
Everyone, stay informed, stay educated, and thanks for watching this segment on Fired Up with Blanca.